Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. If you were following along last summer, you might have seen me build a vertical charcoal rotisserie out of a beer keg. And I built that last year with an idea towards this summer, as soon as the snow cleared up and it got a little bit warmer, to making shawarma and al pastor and a whole bunch of different vertical rotisserie meats. April 2020, not sure if that's going to happen this summer. I'm not afraid about getting the ingredients. I think the supply chains are great. I will be able to find everything that I need. My problem really is around what do I do with 20 pounds of shawarma. My plan had been to invite family and friends over and to help eat it after I had shot the episode. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do it this summer or not, but just in case, I need to learn how to make pita bread. I've always just bought pita bread at the grocery store. But if I'm going to be making shawarma from scratch, why not make pita bread from scratch as well? So I thought I'd start early, figure out if I can do it, where my shortfalls are, so that I can get really good by the time I shoot those videos. So I've got a cup of water into this bowl, and I've put in traditional active dry yeast this time. The last few recipes I have used instant yeast, but you know, I'm running out, so I'm going to use what I have, and you could use either yeast. You just sort of adjust the amounts, and I'll put the differences down in the description box with the recipe. Now to this, I'm going to add 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of flour, and I just want to make a sponge just until the yeast get going. So I'm going to mix this together, and then I'm going to put a cover on it, and I'm going to leave it for 15 to 20 minutes, and it should get frothy. Okay, so we've got some bubbles in there, and you can really smell that yeast. So now I'm going to put in the rest of the flour, but I'm not going to put it all in. I'm going to put maybe that much in. I'm going to leave a little bit behind, and I'm also going to put the salt in now, and then just use a wooden spoon to stir this into a ragged dough ball. Most of the recipes seem to do it this way. They hold back a little bit of the flour for the kneading process. I imagine that's because they don't want the dough to be too dry. So even if you are weighing this down to the gram, you still need to play bread by ear. You still need to decide as you're making it if you need to add more flour or not, or more water, depending on which way you've gone. The difference is in the flour. The flour that I'm going to have here working with in my kitchen is going to be different than the flour you have working in your kitchen. It's going to be made out of different wheats. It's going to be made out of a different combination of wheat. It's going to be ground a little bit differently. In some places they grind it really fine, and in other places it's ground a little bit more coarsely. And because of that, even when you're weighing, the flour will take different amounts of water to get it hydrated to where you want it to be. So that's where that argument of you have to weigh everything and it's a science kind of goes out the window for me, because the best breads that I've ever had are baked by people who don't measure anything. They just throw in the flour and they add water until they get to the point that they want it to be, and then it's done. So I'm going to knead this a little bit on the flour out on the board, because it definitely needs a little bit more flour than I put into the bowl. And if I see that it needs a little bit more because it's really sticking like that, just put a little more flour over and keep kneading it. So I'm going to knead this for 2 to 3 minutes. So I don't think I'm going to end up kneading all of the flour that I weighed out. Now, I've never made this before, and so what I do when I'm looking for a recipe for the first time is I look at dozens of different sources and books and websites and blogs, and I see what other people are doing, and then I sort of distill that into a recipe that I think is going to work, and I give it a shot for the first time like I'm doing today. And there seem to be a couple of different methods to making this, and one method was what I would consider the traditional bread baking method. I would knead this for 12 to 15 minutes by hand to build all of the gluten. Another way that seemed to pop up a lot was knead it for 2 or 3 minutes, put it in a bowl, let it rest, then knead it for 2 or 3 more minutes, and then put it in the bowl for the rise. So I think I'm going to try that, because I've never really done that before. So I've got a dough ball here that looks pretty good. It's still tacky, which I understand is the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to put that in a bowl, I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to leave it for 15 minutes. So one of the perils of me doing these recipes on camera for the first time, a recipe that I'm unfamiliar with, while I'm operating the camera, thinking about sound, thinking about lighting, is that I often forget an ingredient. And this time I forgot the oil. I was supposed to put olive oil in when I was mixing this. And I contemplated going back and starting over, but I thought, no, I'm just going to continue on. I'm going to pull this out for the second knead, and I'm just going to squirt in some olive oil, and I'm going to knead it in as I'm working. I also contemplated not putting it in at all and seeing what happened. But I think I'm going to put it in. It should be fine. Only called for a couple of tablespoons, and we'll just keep moving. So it is a really loose dough. It will take more flour at this point, definitely for sure. So I am going to introduce a dough scraper and take in some of the flour from last time that we didn't use and knead it in. Overall, though, this is a great feeling dough. So the dough feels really good. It's really nice, smooth, elastic. I think I've got it kneaded enough. I gave it another probably 3 minutes of kneading after I added the oil. I did throw down a little bit more flour because it was super sticky, and now it's just a nice, smooth, tacky dough, which is great. So it's going to go for its first rise. I'm going to put it into this bowl, cover it over, and leave it for 45 minutes to an hour and a half. That will depend on the temperature in your kitchen, but you know, as everybody says, doubled in bulk. Okay, we've definitely got a good rise on this. Definitely got a good rise. So, people get upset with me because I don't punch it down. I get that it's called punch down, but by the time you scrape it out of the bowl onto the bench, you've punched it down. Pretty much you just want to deflate it, degas it a little bit or completely, depending on the recipe. And often recipes don't say whether you're supposed to degas it completely or not. So it's kind of up to you. I usually degas completely by the time I get it out. Now I need to cut this into 8 equal or relatively equal pieces. So I'm going to use a scale. And based on what I've got sitting here, they need to be about 70 grams each. So let's see where we get to. 72, close enough. Now I'm going to form these into balls and put them on this tray and cover them over. Let them rest for 10 or 15 minutes. And what that does is allow the gluten to sort of rest and relax, and it's going to make shaping the pitas into flats so much easier. And for this operation, I don't put any flour down on the bench. You want the tension, you want it to stick to the bench a little bit so that you get a really good shape. Okay, so for this operation, I think I'm going to need a little bit of flour on my bench because I don't want it to stick. I want to be able to turn it over and roll it out into a nice round. So, one piece of dough out, and I think I'm just going to use my hand to smush it down first to start the round. And don't be afraid to pick it up and turn it over. At least at this point, I'm not. That may change as we carry on. And now let's just roll it out. And I think I need to get out to 6 or 8 inches is what I'm looking for, or what most of the recipes tell me to get to. I think it's pretty good. So I've got the oven preheated to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've got a pizza stone in the bottom that is super hot at this point. Now, if you don't have a pizza stone, you could throw in, I believe, a cast iron frying pan, put it in, preheat it, and then cook this on top of the frying pan in the oven. So I'm just going to pop this in and see what happens. Look at that!
Hey, Glenn.
Pita bread.
Hey, friends. That's super puffy.
It is really puffy. Now, top tip. Don't put your hand on top and try to squish them down because the steam inside is really hot.
Yeah.
I burnt my hand. So don't be an idiot like I was. Don't try to push them down. Just let
But
them,
you just really want to.
You really
I have
want
to
to,
admit, you
right?
really want to kind of poke it, right?
you do. And
Those are amazing, though.
so eventually they deflate and you get a flat pita bread.
So how come, what it makes it so that there's a space in the middle for the big puffiness?
Magic.
That's not a good answer.
That's the only
Is the recipe really any different than
It's-
regular bread?
No, it is essentially just a regular bread recipe. Salt, flour, water, yeast. The only thing that differs is the roll at the end. Is
Like
you roll
rolling?
it, yeah.
So it's not like you do some fancy roll.
No.
All right. All right, that's just too mysterious for me. If someone has a really great explanation of how and why this happens, which I guess is a similar question, please.
What? Every one of these we got a pocket.
Look at that. That's a good looking pocket.
I'm pretty happy with this.
I can stuff a lot of stuff in that pocket. But it's as simple as any other bread. Or it's, so if you can make regular bread, you can make a pita. It really is where you're going with this.
Definitely, if you've made any other bread, you could make this. You really could. I do think that one of the keys is having a screaming hot oven. We've got the pizza stone. Don't have a pizza stone, just put in a frying pan. And in sort of the flour tortilla vein, you could cook it on a stovetop.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the same sort of
I
idea.
have to imagine that, you know,
You'd get to the same place.
that's probably a much more common way to do it. It's on a flat surface. Yeah.
So I think we're ready to go for shawarma.
Soon!
If summer ever happens, yes.
Soon! I'm ready.
So I would say don't fear the pita. It's something that I've always avoided because I thought it would be hard to get the puffiness. Got it on the first try. I may not do it next time, but that's the way it goes with cooking. So give it a try. Don't be afraid. Stay safe. Stay healthy. See you again soon.